Coming up on Valley View News, how Democrat and Republican parties viewed the close race between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Plus, the battle for the 25th congressional district seat and in-person gatherings held despite the coronavirus pandemic.
Hello and welcome to a special election edition of Valley View News. I'm Amanda Alvarado.
And I'm Ryan Ketchum in the Digital Media Center.
The presidential election is down to the wire as Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania remain battleground states for determining the winner. Throughout election night, Joe Biden led early electoral votes. President Trump picked up momentum through the early morning. Trump secured the swing state of Florida. Biden flipped Arizona, becoming the first time the state voted for a Democrat since President Clinton in 1996. Trump told supporters in the East Room of the White House that late ballots shouldn't be counted. He believes he's the clear winner.
This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
In Vermont, Biden told voters the deciding factor.
It's not my place or Donald Trump's place to declare who's won this election. That's the decision of the American people.
Official election results won't be in until states certify them. Mail-in ballots postmarked on Election Day still need to be counted.
History was made election night. Richie Torres and Mondaire Jones of New York are the first openly gay black men to be elected to Congress. Sarah McBride of Delaware becomes the first openly transgender state senator in U.S. history. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives is projected to stay in Democrat hands.
With you, and yes, we did go out and proclaim victory, and has been acknowledged that we have held the House for the Democrats.
Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi says they wanted to protect the Affordable Care Act and crush the virus. The Senate majority is too close to call.
The Democratic Party had a socially distant election gathering, unlike some in the Republican Party who watched close together. Valley View News reporter Karina Gutierrez has more details from both events.
Democrats made their way to a big party in Los Angeles. It was held at the LA Zoo where many gathered for a drive-in rally. Expecting Joe Biden to win, Freddie Ceja expressed his concerns about the 12 California propositions.
That have to do with the law with regards to affirmative action. That's very important for Latinos in this state.
As we take back the White House. Are you all fired up?
Cars honked as Assembly member Wendy Carrillo took the stage. Other speakers included Council member David Ryu. Supporters sat in their cars as they watched the election coverage.
And it is interesting that Joe Biden's early lead has Democrats hopeful, but Republicans are optimistic for Trump to win the second term.
In Santa Clarita, Republicans gathered for the election. Unlike the Democrats, Republicans stand in aid as they watch the election coverage. Ana Sosa is hopeful for President Trump.
To President Trump, I don't have nothing to say but to thank him for what he's done. I'm very pleased with what he's done to this country, because I think that he worries more for his people, for the country itself, for all of us.
Republican candidate for the State Assembly, Suzette Martinez Valladares, is excited that she's in the lead for District 38. As for the presidential vote, she says it's still too early to call.
And this was an opportunity for every American today to express their vote and how they want to see our nation move.
Reporting for Valley View News, I'm Karina Gutierrez.
George Gascon leads in the polls for Los Angeles District Attorney. At more than 54% Wednesday morning, Gascon has a strong lead over incumbent Jackie Lacey. Gascon was an LA police officer, police chief in Arizona and San Francisco, and a former San Francisco DA. In October, Mayor Eric Garcetti switched his endorsement from Lacey to Gascon in the wake of nationwide protests for criminal justice reform. Lacey is running to keep her seat for a third term. She is the first woman and black prosecutor to hold the post.
LAPD declared a citywide tactical alert Tuesday afternoon as voters made their way to the polls on Election Day. Police responded to a scene near Staples Center in downtown LA. A large crowd wearing all black was seen walking down Figueroa Street. It was unclear what they were marching to and for what cause. Also, some people wearing helmets and knee pads were stopped by police officers and detained for questioning.
Christy Smith and Mike Garcia battle for the 25th Congressional District. Valley View News reporter Bryce Wayne spoke with Democratic nominee Christy Smith and the Lancaster Republican Party officer manager about the close race.
The Lancaster Republican Party worked all day on Election Day, waiting for the results. California District 25 is a rematch between Republican Mike Garcia and Democrat Christy Smith. The office manager for the local Republican Party, Jack Danielson, says they're excited.
We're excited to get, Tom Lackey, Scott Wilk, Mike Garcia, over this hump.
Garcia became the district's representative after a special election earlier this year. Danielson says they've been working to encourage their base to get out to the polls for the general.
If we run on the right values, we should be able to, encourage our voters to get out there.
Voting today? Not here.
District 25 has had Republican representation since 1992 until Katie Hill won in 2018. But Smith says the switch back to Republicans after the special election was a fluke.
We had moved our state's primary from June to March. A lot of our voters didn't realize that there was going to be a May special when I won both primaries coming out of March. A lot of people thought that it was done and over.
The presidential election brings a higher turnout than the midterms. Smith says Democrats will benefit from that.
Typically, increased voter turnout in a district like this where there's a Democratic registration advantage means that more Democrats have turned out, and that puts us at a slight advantage.
Despite losing the special election earlier this year, Christy Smith is leading in the general election. California District 25 could return to Democrat representation after the resignation of Katie Hill. For Valley View News, I'm Bryce Wayne.
Measure J is in favor of passing. If the majority of voters vote yes, it will allocate funds for affordable housing, mental health treatments, jail diversion programs, and job training for low-income communities. That money cannot be redistributed through law enforcement or correctional agencies, including the district attorney's office. Deputies, prosecutors, and probation officers' unions, including Sheriff Alex Villanueva, oppose Measure J, saying defunding law enforcement will result in lost jobs.
More than 21,000 mail-in ballots have been rejected in battleground states like Nevada, Florida, and North Carolina. The ballots would not be counted unless voters explain problems like the lack of witness signatures. Rejection rates are still lower than past elections, but African Americans and Latinos have a higher ballot rejection percentage than those of white voters. According to the Times, the law requires election officials to notify voters regarding ballot signature errors in 6 of the 8 swing states. In California, the deadline for voters to fix signature issues is December 1st.
Whether Trump's elected for a second term or Biden steps into office, a few people have a message for the next president of the United States.
We need to reestablish the department that dealt with the pandemic, with pandemics, because this isn't going to be the only one.
What I would love for our president to do in the next 4 years is to continue to work as hard as he has and to continue making good on all of his promises.
Well, I think there's one issue in our country right now, and it's the whole reason I'm sitting here wearing this mask. It's the pandemic. Everything has to be focused on defeating this pandemic.
There's an election every 2 years, and there's a presidential election every 4 years. There's always a chance to make a difference. There's always a chance to get your voice out there.
First and foremost, we have to contend with the COVID crisis. We cannot reopen our economy until we get America healthy again. And that's going to mean listening to our health experts, to our scientists, and getting the crisis under control so that we can mitigate any further economic.
Propositions were also being considered this election. Proposition 14 is leaning to a yes for stem cell research funding, while Proposition 15 is favoring a no for property tax increases on big businesses. Meanwhile, factoring in race, gender, or ethnicity for hiring and admission decisions is denied with a confirmed no for Proposition 16. Proposition 17 passed, meaning people on parole are able to vote and parolees can run for office. Proposition 18 did not pass, so 17-year-olds still can't vote. Proposition 19 is leaning towards a yes on property tax breaks for new homes.
In more proposition news, Proposition 20 didn't pass. There won't be an increase in penalties for some property crimes. Proposition 21 also didn't pass, meaning cities can expand rent control. A victory for Uber and Lyft as Proposition 22 passed, defining app-based drivers as independent contractors. Proposition 23 has a majority no vote, meaning California won't add requirements for dialysis clinics. The initiative to expand consumer privacy, Prop 24, is leading in a favor of a yes vote, and Proposition 25 is leading with no.
Many candidate campaign rallies were held virtually or with social distancing this year because of the pandemic. Our own Liliana Ramirez reports on one of the few in-person rallies on election night.
Republicans show their support for Donald Trump on the election evening. They demonstrate their solidarity by gathering in Beverly Hills. Pro-Trump supporters are very confident that the Republican candidate will win the election again.
I support Trump because I support everybody's freedom and rights. I love America. I love everything that it was founded on and started on, and it gives everybody the most freedom in the world. Let's keep it going and keep it strong.
The pro-Trump protest was a peaceful one until a couple of anti-Trump supporters arrived. They shouted many negative things about the president. Police and SWAT cars were involved. That didn't stop supporters from expressing their political views.
That we are going to see a beautiful 4 more years.
Some Republican supporters say they want Donald Trump to win the election so they won't have to pay higher taxes. A protester gives Trump a message.
President Trump, I would love to tell you that I love you very much. I support you. I've never been a political person, and in all my life, all the years that I could have voted, I was always told, why would you vote? Your vote doesn't count and it doesn't matter.
Pro-Trump supporters aren't the only ones making their voices heard. Biden supporters gather in downtown Los Angeles to advocate for a different message. In Beverly Hills, I'm Liliana Ramirez reporting for Valley View News.
More to come on Valley View News. What COVID precaution poll workers face to safely ensure in-person voting. And first-time voters are finally getting to have their voices heard.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit, and now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking, now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
California opens a $25 million laboratory to process COVID-19 testing. The lab located in Valencia opened last Friday. It's designed to increase the testing capacity in Los Angeles. So far, more than 18 million tests have been conducted in the state. Governor Gavin Newsom thinks the testing site will let people get results quickly.
This lab also promises to get results back within 48 hours, but a stated goal within 24 hours.
The lab will begin processing tests this month. It'll eventually be able to do up to 150,000 tests by March of 2021.
COVID cases are on the rise in Southern California. Los Angeles County reported 1,572 new cases and 4 additional deaths on Sunday. Orange County reported 244 new cases with 1 death. Health officials say the average amount of new cases a day is around 1,200. Business restrictions will still be in place and school campuses will not reopen until the daily case number drops. Concern for rising cases include gatherings at outdoor restaurants and protests.
The U.S. surpasses 9 million positive coronavirus cases. Johns Hopkins University data shows the U.S. added 1 million new cases in 14 days. It's the fastest the country has hit 1 million cases since the start of the pandemic, and several states are reporting their highest daily positive case numbers since the start. The director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Dr. Robert Redfield, says patients with no symptoms are causing the latest surges. He says it's the silent epidemic as COVID-19 is passing between 12 to 30-year-olds.
The essential workers for this election are the poll workers, and they ensure that COVID-19 safety measures are in place for people voting in person. Valley View News reporter Cindy Rodriguez spoke with the Ventura County poll volunteers.
You want to leave that screen there so they can see that no votes have been cast.
Poll workers preparing for the 2020 election faced new techniques counting ballots. COVID-19 brought challenges, but it also provided a new process for running a successful polling location on Election Day.
What's nice about this, because of the changes, the fact that we have 4 days to kind of work out the kinks and stuff, as opposed to the normal one night where it's like, we got to get it right.
Poll workers are essential this season, and many returned to work despite the pandemic. Debbie Price, a radio producer, is a lung transplant patient. She's back for her 5th election. For her, it's about assisting voters through the process.
People love to go and vote. They love to go and vote in person. And obviously it's different this year, but it just makes the whole process go smoothly.
And while longtime poll workers had trepidations about working the lines, many saw this as the country's biggest ask of them.
I have the ability to wear the mask for a long time. I can set a good example. Yeah, no skepticism. It's got to get done, and I'm happy to do it.
And just like your vote, the safety of poll workers and voters is incredibly important. And here in Ventura County, they're doing everything they can to prevent the further spread of COVID-19. For Valley View News, I'm Cindy Rodriguez.
Studies show that LAUSD middle and high school students are receiving D's and F's this school year due to remote learning. The district says schools won't be fully reopened until COVID numbers reduce in the county. However, the district hopes that they can open schools in January at the earliest. Schools started in-person classes for small groups of 3. It'll provide one-on-one tutoring for those needing help. The district also intends to begin receiving small groups of special education children in the coming weeks.
The Supreme Court removed a lower court opinion related to Black Lives Matter protests. The lower court allowed a Louisiana police officer to continue his lawsuit to hold the organizer of Black Lives Matter protests, DeRay McKenson, responsible for injuries the officer suffered. In 2016, he was hit by a heavy object at the protests. The police officer suffered a brain injury and loss of teeth. McKenson didn't throw the object. The person who did is still unidentified.
They have publicly called them really violent, and that just isn't true. I was there, and they are trying to be the moral compass for violence.
The Supreme Court has ruled that a peaceful protester can't be held liable for the unlawful actions of others. Acting Solicitor General Walter Dellinger told the court the Constitution doesn't excuse the attacker's conduct, but he said it does protect the organizer who didn't commit illegal activity.
The Bobcat fire has burned through more than 100,000 acres of vegetation and homes in the San Gabriel Mountains. Biologists are working to rescue and relocate endangered wildlife before winter storms approach. Among the species to be relocated are mountain yellow-legged frogs. Scientists have caught 50 tadpoles from the Little Rock Creek to be housed at the Los Angeles Zoo. State and federal wildlife agencies have received permits to rescue 21 western pond turtles and take them to the San Diego Zoo.
This election marks a first for many headed to the polls. Valley View News reporter Yahata Joaquin spoke with 2 people who are now getting involved.
First-time voters Nicole Baez and Angie Lopez are making their voices count on this election.
It makes me feel good that I'm contributing to something that's going to hopefully help our country.
We'll be happy to vote, and I'm excited to vote for the first time.
Nicole and Angie are both educating and encouraging others to vote.
Posting on social media a lot of information on how to find correct, reliable information.
Speaking to coworkers, speaking to friends, speaking to family.
They explain the motivation and the importance of voting, especially as a first-timer.
You can also vote for who you agree with, and it helps your values get put into our country.
And if you're able to vote, I mean, every voice and every vote counts.
Political Science Department Chair Tom Hogganish says he encourages his students to vote.
Things change quickly, and the students of today will be the productive people in the society making important decisions. And so yeah, the democracy won't work unless people engage.
First-time voters can prepare themselves by visiting vote411.org for a checklist to follow depending on their state and city. Reporting for Valley View News, I'm Yahara Joaquin.
Cruise ships are able to resume sailing, but not with passengers. The CDC lifted the ban with the new health protocols. Director Robert Redfield says this framework helps prevent outbreaks on ships and ports. The initial phase requires cruise companies to have additional testing and social distancing requirements. The next phase is mock voyages. Volunteers will help test the ship operator's response to an infection. After this, cruise companies will receive certification and allow passengers aboard.
Target is taking a new approach to Black Friday. To avoid potential spread of the coronavirus, the company is having their holiday deals throughout the month of November. Savings on Beats headphones and Ring Video doorbells will last a week, and there will be new deals on different items throughout the rest of the month. Their price match guarantee program is extended through December 24th. Target says the new approach gives shoppers more flexibility and a stress-free shopping experience during the pandemic.
Lowe's is looking to hire 20,000 employees across the U.S. The retail store wants to support customers' demands this holiday season. In-store positions include cashier, customer service, receiver, unloader, and load puller for full-time and part-time employees. The company also said it'll donate another $100 million to their frontline workers. Since the start of the pandemic, Lowe's has hired 155,000 seasonal employees. Many have transitioned into more permanent roles.
Dissatisfaction with the candidates and doubtful that their vote counts are just a couple of reasons some Americans are not choosing to cast their ballots. Valley View News reporter Alexis Amezcua spoke to non-voters in Palmdale.
You get a new senator, don't you? You get new mayors. That's how you know that your vote went in.
As millions of Americans rush to the polls, many are having trouble finding a reason to vote. Palmdale resident Antoine Malbrew says no change comes for voting. He thinks it's just something to keep people occupied.
We get no results from it. We just voting just to have something to do, I guess.
Almost 100 million people didn't vote in the 2016 election. Voting locally and in the national general elections can help the community in more than one way. But for Palmdale resident B.D. Johnson, voting in local elections isn't worth it.
I feel voting locally is a pond. They're just trying to play us. It's a waste of everyone's time.
Many people think their vote doesn't matter, but for others, not voting means never having their voices heard in an election, or just being lost without a voice.
All we know is we voting, we sending paper in, we never hear back again a day in life.
There's still time to vote. To find your local polling places, go to vote.org. Reporting from Palmdale, I'm Alexis Amezcua for Valley View News.
When we come back, how countries around the world are dealing with COVID-19 and natural disasters. Also, legal cases with a popular singer and an A-list actor. Stay with us. England's 4-week lockdown may last longer. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced last Saturday that the new lockdown will run from November 5th till December 2nd. However, Johnson says it would be foolish to predict what will happen with certainty.
The virus is spreading even faster than the reasonable worst-case scenario of our scientific advisors.
Bars and restaurants will only offer takeout and non-essential shops are closed. Schools and universities will stay open, but hairdressers, gyms, bowling alleys, and golf courses are among several venues to shut down. Britain has just passed 1 million confirmed coronavirus cases and have more than 46,700 dead.
Protesters are taking to the streets of Italy after the announcement of new lockdown restrictions. New guidelines require bars and restaurants to close by 6 p.m. Movie theaters and gyms will also be closed completely. Demonstrators chanted against their premier, Giuseppe Conte. Responding riot police were met with paper bombs, flares, and Molotov cocktails. The National Committee for Public Order and Security says the protesters started peacefully. Italy registered a record 31,000 COVID-19 cases in the previous 24 hours.
Typhoon Goni hit the Philippines over the weekend. It has killed at least 10 people and left 3 missing. It is said to be an equivalent of a Category 4 hurricane that has caused flooding, mudslides, and strong winds. Authorities say 345,000 people are being housed in evacuation centers. It is predicted that the storm will weaken over the South China Sea and bring flooding rainfall to Vietnam. Recovery efforts are underway.
A 7.0 magnitude earthquake killed 79 people in Turkey last week. Officials do not know how many people are missing. As of last Saturday, more than 100 people have been rescued after 20 buildings were seriously damaged. 42 out of the 900 aftershocks registered with a magnitude of 4.0 or more. The main earthquake triggered a small tsunami in Izmir and Samos province.
R&B singer R. Kelly will have an anonymous jury hearing for his federal trial in New York. U.S. District Judge Ann M. Donnelly granted the motion on October 8th. She says having an anonymous jury is appropriate given the seriousness of the charges and the history of Kelly's obstructing the judicial process. He's allegedly influenced witnesses and persuaded people to give false testimonies in his past juries. Kelly is accused of multiple sex trafficking charges and federal racketeering. The trial date is yet to be announced.
Johnny Depp lost a libel case against the Sun tabloid newspaper. The paper labeled him a wife beater after believing the actor abused his ex-wife Amber Heard. Justice Andrew Nicole says the defendants proved the allegations were true. The judge found 12 of the 14 instances of domestic violence against Heard was sufficient to rule against Depp. Depp is also suing Heard for $50 million over a Washington Post essay she wrote about domestic violence. The Sun called the decision a stunning victory for press freedom.
The coronavirus pandemic ended this year's Broadway season early. This limited the number of eligible nominees for this year's Tony Awards. New shows usually debut in the spring before the Tonys to guarantee the performances are fresh in voters' minds. The pandemic stopped that from happening. For Tony winners this year, the award will be about prestige and financial gain for performers, directors, and writers.
The original James Bond actor Sean Connery died at 90 years old. Sean Connery's wife revealed in an interview that her husband struggled with dementia in the time leading up to his death. Connery's acting career spanned 5 decades before retiring in 2006. Some of his other famous film roles include The Hunt for Red October, Highlander, and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Throughout his career, he was awarded 3 Golden Globes. He also won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in 1988. That's all for us at Valley View News. I'm Ryan Ketchum.
And I'm Amanda Alvarado. For stories any time of the day, go to our website, sundial.csun.edu. Thanks for watching.